So, social media is finally getting sued for what it was designed to do.
Meta and YouTube have for the first time been found liable in a case that accused the companies of intentionally creating addictive platforms that harmed the mental health of young users. This jury found Meta and YouTube liable on all counts, finding that the companies were negligent in the design of their platforms, that they failed to warn users of the risks, and that they played a substantial role in those mental health harms that Kaylee experienced. This could set a precedent for hundreds of similar cases that have been filed against Meta and YouTube, as well as TikTok and Snap. The jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay a combined total of $6 million in compensatory and punitive damages. Meta and YouTube say they disagree with the verdict and plan to appeal.
And that should probably scare you. Because for years, people acted like social media addiction was just some personal problem that nobody else had to really deal with. People were weak. You aren't weak. Other people are weak. Like other people, they just have no discipline. Your mom was right. It's the phone. And what they just needed to do was just put the phone down. But now the courts are starting to ask a very different question. What if these platforms were built like this on purpose? Spoiler, they are. This stops being a conversation about bad habits and starts becoming this conversation around product design, like the actual legal liability that these platforms and billionaires who run them actually hold responsibility for. The future of the internet itself really depends on these things because I really do think that's where it's heading. This is not even just about one lawsuit. This is about the entire era of the internet that we're in currently that was built around one goal above anything else, and that is keep people on the app as long as possible, get them to watch ads, and rake in the dollars. That's it. That's the whole business model. That is as clear as day what they want to do, and it's capitalism, right? The longer you stay, the more ads that they can show you. The more ads that they show you, the more money that they make. So everything gets built around this attention. It's not about truth. It's not about your health. It's not about what's good for you. It's about what's good for them, what's good for their pockets. It's about your attention span, which your attention, it's money. Your attention is valuable, and they got you. And once that attention becomes the only thing that matters, the whole internet starts turning into a machine. It's definitely different than when I was growing up. The internet was a very different place. It did not operate the way that it operates now, but because of social media, it's just been bastardized to the ultimate degree. And this machine, it does not care about like what it does to your brain. It does not care about what it does to your health. But let's start with the real problem. The real problem with social media right now is not even social media. It's the For You feed. Let's be honest. The one singular feature that changed the internet and social media forever. Because once the internet stopped letting you have control of what you want to watch, who you follow, what comes up on your feed when you want to watch it, you going out of your way to choose what you want to watch, social media stopped being a tool and it started feeling like something entirely different. It became way more addictive because of this. I mean, and what are you complaining about? The platform is giving you the solution to the problem that you've always had, which is choice. These social media platforms, they're studying your behavior nonstop. So what do you pause on? What do you replay again? What do you watch on repeat? What do you comment on? What pisses you off? What makes you insecure or curious or feel seen? What makes you feel validated? And then it just keeps on feeding you more of that. That's the point. The point is to feed you until you're fat. And it's hard to get that weight off. The weight is up here. Because the algorithm doesn't know what's good for you, neither does it care at all. It only knows what keeps you there, and that's what's important. It doesn't know the difference between curiosity and obsession. It doesn't know the difference between the interest versus the damage that interest gives you. It doesn't know the difference between like learning something and then spiraling into some like weird rabbit hole conspiracy theory, and then next thing you know, your entire feed is conspiracy theories, and it feels like everybody's talking about this thing that is inevitably going to happen and your world is ending, the sky is falling, and then you talk to somebody else about it and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. All it knows is you stayed. And once a platform is built like that, you really aren't browsing anymore. You are now the product. You are the experiment. You're the hamster on the wheel. You're being fed, and they keep on feeding you and experimenting and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and then just whatever gets you addicted more. Now, let's talk about how that affects people, and that relates to this lawsuit, because this is where people are starting to oversimplify it. People love reducing this whole conversation down to its attention spans, right? Oh, social media, it ruined our attention spans. Short form content ruined people's brains, brain rot. And yeah, that's a part of it. But I think that the deeper issue is way bigger than that. The issue is that these platforms do not just take away your attention, they train your reactions. That's what's really happening. Because if they get a reaction out of you, the platform reads that as value. Not whether it helped you or, like if it was good for you or if it was true or if it made your life better, but just because it got you to respond, that's what matters. So then what happens? The feed starts rewarding this, right? The kinds of things that trigger people the hardest. Stuff that makes you feel amazing in some like ego-driven fantasy way. This is like maybe like your red pill content maybe, or maybe something that like, you can blame somebody for, your problems. That's a good one. Or stuff that makes you feel awful, things that make you feel like insecure about yourself, like the Instagram filter effect, right? Jealous or angry, this guy's who's, a jerk has this amazing life, or this person that is obviously perfect, but we all know that they aren't, and they're not as rich as they say they are. They don't have the perfect life that they say they are. It makes you feel like you want that thing, and it really makes you feel bad about like the situation that you're currently in. So it's super toxic. This stuff that makes you feel like everything is against you, for example, or stuff that makes you feel like only your niche and bubble gets it. This kind of content is the stuff that performs. It's all working together in different ways to control your behavior, and it all reeks of addiction. Because once your emotions become the fuel for the feed, the source of the whole system just gets way darker, right? This is why social media doesn't just feel addicting. It feels psychologically like invasive. It feels like it's actually infecting our brains. And that's probably where the brain rot comes from. Now let's talk about one of the scary parts of this, because it can feed people reality. And that's where it gets really dangerous. It can turn one reaction into your entire environment. And once somebody is trapped in that environment long enough, it stops feeling like it's a feed and it starts feeling like it's reality. It starts feeling like they're doing it, right? Maybe they do. Maybe now they take the step towards looking for this stuff on their own because they've become addicted to it. They got to know more information. They got to, go down the rabbit hole even more. But the algorithm is what did most of the work. And that's why I say this is much bigger than just people scrolling too much. This is about platforms creating personalized reality tunnels for what is billions of people, essentially. And that is really a horrible way to build society. And it's really ruined a lot of things in our society because of it. Now, let's also talk about why this is perfect for propaganda, for example, because this is a part of that people really don't want to talk about. And I'm not trying to get like political or anything, but like an algorithm like this is not just addicting, it's a perfect machine for manipulation, for false information, because a platform that learns what emotionally hooks you, it can keep sending you versions of that exact same thing that is in your head forever, right? Whatever you fear or whatever makes you outraged, or whatever gives you validation, a conspiracy, whatever it may be. As long as it keeps you engaged, it wins. Especially with AI now, I mean, it's just going to get even more dangerous. And that is a very dangerous incentive structure for these social media platforms to have. Because now people are not just seeing the world around them. They're actually not seeing the world around them at all. They're seeing a very distorted view of that world. They're seeing a world that has been filtered through whatever keeps them, me and you, emotionally activated, right? One person opens their phone and gets nonstop fear. Another will get, nonstop vanity, or, another person will get nonstop, culture war content or actual war content. Maybe self-diagnosing something like health problems, maybe like, oh, I didn't know if I had this problem. Now I think that I'm dying. It just creates this like nonstop hopelessness. And then everybody just walks around feeling like that feed is their reality. But your feed is not the reality. It's a machine learning what moves you and then feeding it back to you until it starts shaping how you think. So that's why it's incredibly useful for propaganda. So people, billionaires and other people that have big influence in like how they use their money to buy these companies and things, like Larry Ellison, for example, being influential with TikTok now. I mean, that changes a lot of things as well. But anyway, moving on, creators know everything that I've been talking about more than anybody else, really. The platforms didn't just change how people consume the content. For content creators, it changed how we make the content. Because once the system starts rewarding this bait, creators start making bait. That's just what's going to happen. They're all trying to succeed in some sort of way on the platform. And so if the system rewards outrage, people will make outrage. If it rewards, really good hooks that hook people in, then it's going to reward that. If it rewards, manufacture conflict or a slow payoff, maybe. There's so many different ways, emotionally driving you to watch the video. There's so much that you can learn from the human psyche, especially after doing it for so long and seeing how people react to certain content, that you can really learn how to manipulate people into watching your content for longer. And it's really changed the way that we create content. And if we're the ones creating this content and we're all just we're basically just eating each other alive at this point. This is why it makes content and making content feel so exhausting now. This is why everybody talks like they're trying to stop your thumb for like 2 seconds. It's just like so much energy up from the top, or just like a super, or like, an incredible hot take or something like that just immediately triggers you. They make content like they want to hold your brain hostage, right? Because the environment trained them to do that. It trained me to do that in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying that from like some moral high ground. A lot of this stuff I've been guilty of consuming this way. I've been guilty of making content this way. This is how we become better content creators in general, when, the main purpose is to go viral or, get the most views and the most engagement or whatever. This is how you succeed, right? Is use the tools in front of you, use whatever the environment is and game is, and play it to the best of your ability. People like me, they adapt to this like reward system that social media has created. So if the reward system changes, the content's going to change with it. This is why this matters way beyond the lawsuits. Because if it feels like the product changes, then the whole culture of the content changes with it. So now let's talk about the lawsuits, because this is where the future starts, right? If these platforms keep getting sued and losing over addiction, over these harmful recommendation systems, over the way that these products are designed, then they're going to have to change the product. Not because they suddenly care or because they had like some moral awakening or they decided to do the right thing. They will change because it's like too expensive not to. I mean, I think that's how it's going to have to work. Once addiction becomes a legal liability, like the business model itself, because of capitalism, it just has this huge problem that you're going to have to figure out, especially if, the government gets involved. And that's the real thing that people should probably be paying attention to right now. And that's the reason I'm making this video now, is because I'm thinking about the future of social media. It's probably not going to be the death of algorithms altogether, obviously, but I think it's going to be the death of like an irresponsible algorithm. And I think that will be the real shift. Like maybe the For You feed does not disappear overnight. Maybe it doesn't fully die, but like this hyper aggressive, like, I don't know, reactive engagement at all costs version of like this For You page we got, like that version may not survive forever, for much longer. If the courts keep treating it like it's this harmful design choice, I don't know, it's capitalism, right? Never bet against making money. But if they're losing money, it might become a problem. And honestly, I think that's like where it's probably going to be headed. But maybe that's just me being optimistic. Now let's talk about what those changes could actually look like, because this is where it gets really interesting. So like I think one of the biggest things that we could see is the weakening of the For You feed as we know it, but not necessarily gone forever. Just like something that like puts more emphasis on like following feeds, maybe, maybe that's the main choice that it shows you instead of the For You feed. So that could mean more control over what you actually see. Maybe you can have the option of turning off For You feed recommendations, and that kind of puts the power in the hands of those who are more addicted. And so maybe if there is the option to do that, instead of, because like right now, if you bring up TikTok, it's automatically going to do the For You feed. It's automatically going to give you that option for the For You feed that's always going to be there. So if maybe there's an option to not have that and turn it off, maybe that could be a step in the right direction. Or we could be seeing the baby steps towards a new social media platform that won't have a For You feed at all. Maybe people gravitate towards that more, which, I mean, that can mean less autoplay. It means less infinite recommendation loops, because like the For You feed never ends, right? So the more friction that you add, the more guardrails, especially for younger users. Maybe they take off the For You feed for younger users, and more limits around like how hard these platforms can like optimize around the engagement. Just some kind of friction and guardrails in place, some kind of regulation, I think would be good for these platforms. And if that really happens, it would change a lot. Because the internet we have right now, I mean, it's built around being force fed. If that goes away even a little bit, like the whole rhythm of like social media changes. So I don't know how people will react to it. I really think people are more ready for that than the platforms want to admit, I think. And, I think that's probably why people are starting to I've been seeing way more people start to get tired of this version of the internet, because I do not think that people are magically like waking up and fixing their attention spans necessarily, but I think that people are getting tired of being manipulated. I think that people are getting tired of feeling like they're psychologically being farmed. I think they are getting tired of, opening an app and instantly feeling like something is trying to pull them into some sort of mood or vibe or a belief or fear, a trend, some kind of reaction loop. I think this is why podcasts are really growing at such a high rate, even though they've been around forever. That's why long form content still matters. I mean, even TikTok rewards longer videos versus shorter videos because it wants to keep your attention longer. So this is why communities matter also. People still want stuff that they choose on purpose, because there's a huge difference between like choosing to sit down and like listen to somebody talk for 30 minutes, somebody that you trust and know and enjoy their content, and then being dragged through an endless conveyor belt of content from people that you don't even know. TikTok's like, hey, like you'd like this, but even like YouTube now does this too. So I think that's a totally different relation to media that we have. It feels chosen for us, and it just doesn't feel good. After a while, you start to realize what's happening, and you feel kind of like a clown for even participating in it, honestly. Like these apps, they're just playing you. I think over time, people are going to want more and more chosen media again, more of their following, more searching, more joining like niche communities, maybe like just having a feed of like whatever, I'm going to go to my feed about this, instead of like all this other stuff that pulls you in totally different directions. Maybe something like that, more intentional reviewing. So it's a mix of like the For You page, but also a mix of the following. And it kind of gives you just like, hey, like we want to know what you like, and we want to give you more of what you like, but we want you to choose what you want to watch. More direct connection, stuff that like they actually ask for, because people are not, because like people are becoming saints or anything. It's just really like people are going to get tired of being manipulated and farmed for basically ad money. And that's a lot of what social media feels like right now. I mean, you go on TikTok and every other swipe is going to be an ad. And if it's not an actual ad, like sponsored post, It's going to be somebody selling something or whatever. And it's so exhausting. Now let's talk about what this means for content creating moving forward, because this is the part I think that creators actually need to hear. If the feed does change, the content will change with it again. Just like with every other era, we're going to have to change again. I had another video where I talked about this before, how things were different in 2020 versus how they're different now with the way we promote music. Every era is going to have its own rules, its own rewards, or, different behaviors that changes what works. And the creators that adapt are the ones that are going to survive. So now if the next era of social media becomes a little less about hijacking these strangers in the For You feed and a little bit more about building an audience that actually purposely chooses you, and it's more about following you and your followers and stuff, then the content strategy definitely does change. Now, for people that are creating content or just starting to create content in this era and knowing how things work and getting really good at it, this is going to be kind of jarring for a lot of people. For people like myself and others that created content like this before, it might be a little bit easier to, navigate. It could be a good thing for a lot of people. And maybe that means that, because maybe it means that audience loyalty will matter more overall. Being followed matters more. Maybe community matters, and that trust you build matters. Maybe the best move is not just to making content that gets attention, but content that is directed towards that somebody that followed you on purpose and they want to come back to hear what else you have to say about a certain subject or whatever, part 1, part 2, part 3 type thing. And it's a totally different type of game. And I honestly think it is a healthier one. It's not perfect, really. It's not some utopia, social media, internet fantasy that we're creating, but I mean, it is healthier because right now, too much of the internet is built around exploiting people, right? It's more like exploiting the worst parts of people and the human psychology. And if these lawsuits keep stacking up, if courts keep looking at this stuff and saying you cannot build platforms like this, you can't purposely create machines that are addicting. I mean, it's like cigarettes, basically. You're creating a thing that is addicting and you're advertising it over and over and over and over again, getting people addicted and ruining their lives. Once people realize that these, once the courts or the government realizes that these machines are not good for people's brains and they're just really ruining a lot of things about society, then yeah, social media is going to have to change a lot. And when it changes, the content changes with it. So no, I don't think that this is just one girl winning one lawsuit. I think this is one of those moments that might end up signaling the end of an era. Because once addiction becomes a liability, the old version of the internet, it starts becoming too expensive to keep running. And when that happens, a new version is going to have to be built, especially when just people wake up, and they just they start leaving the platform to go something else, something that's, less addictive or aggressive or, manipulative, maybe even less good, whatever that means, less addictive may mean less good for some people, but maybe that's what we're looking for. Maybe that's what a lot of people are going to end up looking for and gravitating towards, something a little bit more human. And I think that honestly might be the best trade. That might be the next era. But anyway, I don't want to keep you guys too long. I kind of feel like I've ranted along this topic enough. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this lawsuit that this lady won, and what do you guys think is going to happen in the future with social media because of it. And yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave you guys with that. And until next time, Zilla out.